In the town of Goobersville, Indiana, many people began to go missing in the year 2003. Around the same time, there were reports of a bald man wandering around in the early morning hours, creepily staring at cars as they passed. He was also seen standing outside the homes of townsfolk, not saying a word. The police were called several times, but by the time they arrived, he was always gone. Rumors of his existence began to spread, with some thinking he was a ghost or just a man with a mental disability. However, things began to take a much darker turn. On October 3rd, 2003, the police were called to the home of Jack and Diane. When the couple woke up that morning, they discovered that their basement cellar door had been broken into, allowing access to the inside of the home from the basement. The police inspected the entire home and found no one hiding inside. They assured the couple that they were safe and suggested they fix their basement cellar door as soon as possible for their safety. A few days later, the police received another phone call from the same home, but this time it was the voice of a very soft-spoken man. The police dispatcher had a very hard time understanding the man before he eventually hung up the phone. The police were quickly sent to the home and knocked on the front door, but no one answered. One of the officers decided to peek through a window leading into the living room. The officer began to vomit after seeing what was in the living room from the outside of the home. Backup was called to surround the house, which was now considered a crime scene, as the couple they had seen alive just a few days earlier were now deceased. After several hours of searching the home, no one was found inside the home of Jack and Diane. A week later, on October 13th, a frantic call was made to the police. It was the voice of a woman saying she saw a bald man standing on her front porch. She did not recognize the man, and while on the phone with the dispatcher, she peeked through an upstairs window to get a good look at him without the creepy man noticing. However, when she took a peek through the window, he looked up at her from the front porch, and a big grin spread across his face. The woman, still on the phone with the dispatcher, heard the man yell from outside the home, "I know you're alone." Soon after, the phone line disconnected, and all the power inside the home went out. The police arrived 3 minutes later, but when they arrived, both the woman and the creepy man were nowhere to be found. In the early morning hours of Halloween 2003, a man driving home from work struck a pedestrian who was walking in the middle of the road. He called the police to report the accident, describing the person he hit as a bald man wearing a suit who appeared to be lifeless. However, to his shock, the man suddenly got up from the street and began walking toward him. The driver frantically informed the dispatcher that the man he thought he had killed was alive. Soon after, the dispatcher heard the driver screaming, before the call abruptly ended. When the police arrived at the scene, they found evidence of the accident, but no car was present. They noticed blood and car parts scattered on the road and spotted the lights of a car in the distance driving away. The police turned on their sirens and attempted to pull over the vehicle, but the unidentified car sped up, reaching speeds of over 100 miles per hour. The chase continued for almost 30 minutes until the car crashed into a tree. Upon inspecting the vehicle, the police discovered the unconscious body of the bald man connected to the other crimes. The injured suspect was taken to the hospital and was labeled as being in critical condition. He had to be placed into a medically induced coma. The police worked frantically to identify the man, and after an intense search, they discovered his identity through dental records. The man was identified as Leroy Jenkins, a patient who had escaped from an insane asylum a month earlier. The only known family member was his sister, who was quickly informed of the situation. When asked if she wanted him to be revived, she quickly responded with a firm no, explaining that he was a danger to society. She revealed that the reason he was in the insane asylum in the first place was because of what he did to their parents when he was 9 years old. He had killed them and attempted to kill her as well, but she had luckily escaped. After receiving permission from Leroy's sister, the plug was pulled from the machine that was keeping him alive, and he died soon after. His sister wanted no funeral, as she despised her brother for what he had done. She wished for him to be cremated to ensure that he would be wiped off the face of the planet for good and would have no opportunity to harm anyone else. And after receiving his remains, she flushed his ashes down the toilet.